worried about reform, that number 10 are worried about reform, and that they're telling you the lines to take.
I'm just telling you the truth, Sophie. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth about what reform stand for. I could also tell.
Really going to be looking out for from them is reform, because it feels to me like this is a big test about whether they can convert votes into seats. And if they do manage that at council level, then that obviously has an impact on the general election as well. How much of a threat are reform to Labour?
So, look, I think people need to be clear what they're voting for if they're considering voting for reform, because
that's an answer with respect to a completely different question. How much of a threat is reform to Labour?
So, look, I go out door knocking every week in my own constituency, and my personal experience has been that the polling results that you see reported in the news isn't reflected in the conversations that you have.
What's your constituency?
So I represent Swindon in Wiltshire, so it was a seat that I won off of the Conservatives in July of last year. It was a seat where reform came third. And so, my experience is that the poll numbers aren't necessarily reflected on the doorstep.
So
but what I would say is that, people that are considering voting for reform, they need to be, clear what they're voting for. Nigel Farage's party is a party that will insist that you whip your credit card out when you get to the door of A&E, or that you take a bank loan out if you want to have your hip replaced.
Can I make an observation? Because whenever I ask Labour MPs about reform, every Labour MP comes to me with that line on the NHS, which makes me feel that that is a number 10 line. And that makes me feel that Labour are worried about reform, that number 10 are worried about reform, and that they're telling you the lines to take.
I'm just telling you the truth, Sophie. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth about what reform stand for. I could also tell you. You're
telling me about the NHS thing, because that's been polled by number 10 as damaging to Nigel.
British politics is intensifying fast, and missing out isn't an option. Hit that like button and subscribe right now, because the reality is, most viewers tune in without subscribing, even though it costs nothing. Stay one step ahead of the headlines, stay informed with real updates, and make sure your voice is part of the discussion.
Nigel Farage. And I'm not saying whether it's true or not.
Also because Nigel Farage has stood up and said he wants to move to an insurance-based health system.
I'm not disputing that. But I guess what I am disputing is that I do think Labour are worried about reform. That's fair enough. You've got a very broad but shallow coalition. You're facing reform in an awful lot of seats. It would be natural. They're leading the polls.
So
there's no shame in it.
We fight for every single vote. And I will always be honest about what my opponents are standing for. And I'm just being honest with you about that. I would also say, if you look at the candidates that Reform were fielding before the general election last year, making racist comments, things about Rishi Sunak, who was then the Prime Minister, and I've got no love lost between me and Rishi Sunak, but I do think he was completely right when he stood up and said that his daughters shouldn't have to grow up in a country where people who are standing for public office are using such vile and racist language. And we actually saw Nigel Farage sort of having to distance himself from that. But those are the types of people who are standing as candidates for the Reform Party. They had 4 or 5 MPs in the House of Commons. One of them's already been booted out. So they're fighting like rats in a sack at the moment. I would say that if people are considering how they're going to vote at the election tomorrow in these council elections, vote for a serious party that's committed to improving the delivery of public services in your area and will be able to work with the Labour government to bring about the change that people undoubtedly want to see.
Who's more of a threat, Reform or the Conservatives?
Well, the Conservatives seem to not even be on the pitch in some of these elections. And what we don't know is about these sort of grubby backroom deals that they seem to be doing between one another. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, was recorded recently, wasn't he, as saying that he, potentially wants to, go into coalition with Reform or something like that. And so people don't really know what they're voting for. If you're voting for Conservative, you might be getting Reform. If you're voting for Reform, you might be getting Conservative. And so...
Welcome back. What you're witnessing isn't just another political exchange, it's a clear sign of rising pressure within British politics, especially inside Labour's own ranks. On the surface, it may sound like a routine discussion about Reform UK's polling and upcoming council elections, but beneath that, the tension is impossible to ignore. The moment Labour MPs are challenged, the tone shifts fast, and suddenly the same scripted warnings start rolling out, again and again, particularly around reform and the NHS. It raises a serious question: if reform isn't truly a threat, why does every Labour voice fall back on identical, well-rehearsed lines the second the topic comes up? That's the uncomfortable point no one seems willing to confront, and it's exactly where public doubt begins to take hold. When every politician starts repeating the exact same lines, it's natural for people to wonder who's really calling the shots: Number 10, Party HQ, or nervous strategists watching the ground shift beneath them. Labour claims they are just presenting the facts about Reform UK, and maybe they truly believe it, but in politics, perception is everything. Right now, Labour doesn't look panicked, but it's clear they are on high alert. Reform UK may not have deep roots everywhere yet, but they are testing a crucial question: where can support turn into real power? That's why the council elections matter far more than they are often given credit for. Far from being minor, council seats are the proving ground, showing whether a party can organise, campaign locally, and actually win when it counts, beyond polls and scripted lines. If Reform UK begins converting backing into actual council victories, it could reshape the political map ahead of a general election. Labour MPs downplay the numbers, insisting that the door-to-door reality doesn't match the headlines, but the warning signs are impossible to ignore. Labour MPs point to personal experience, knocking on doors in areas where Reform UK finished third and seemed contained. That may hold true locally, but politics is never uniform. Quiet in one town can explode in another. Then there's the NHS line, repeated endlessly: voting reform allegedly means paying up front for care, using credit or loans. Fair or not, this narrative has been weaponized, and when every Labour MP parrots it, it stops sounding like genuine concern and starts looking like a rehearsed defence. That's why the interview presses back, repetition sows doubt and chips away at Labour's confidence. The idea that Number 10 is worried about Reform UK isn't speculation, it's embedded in the way Labour presents them. Their response is always the same: yes, any serious party would be concerned. They fight for every vote, lead the polls, and can't afford complacency, but in politics, perception often outweighs intention. When a party comes across as defensive, it can unintentionally amplify the very threat it's trying to downplay. The conversation pivots to reform candidates and past controversies, a classic diversion, shifting focus from policy to personalities, old statements, and internal disputes. The unspoken message is clear: this isn't a party ready for power, it's a party trying to hold itself together. Yet beneath the surface lies an undeniable truth: Reform UK has MPs, visibility, and a presence in the national conversation. A party that truly didn't matter wouldn't demand this much attention to discredit. Equally revealing is how quickly the Conservatives are brushed aside, barely seen as a contender, sometimes dismissed entirely. That alone highlights how dramatically British politics has changed. For decades, the narrative was Labour versus Conservative. Now that old order is showing serious cracks. Whispers of backroom deals and potential cooperation between Conservatives and Reform, whether real or speculative, only deepen voter confusion. People aren't sure what a vote truly delivers anymore: vote Conservative, or something else entirely, vote Reform, or end up with Conservative influence anyway. That uncertainty breeds distrust, and distrust drives the volatility that defines British politics today. Loyalties are fragile, coalitions shallow, and voters are shopping around rather than committing for life, dangerous terrain for any party, especially one promising sweeping changes to public services. Labour urges voters to back a serious party capable of working with government, delivering locally, and achieving real results. For some, that message resonates. For others, it reads as establishment rhetoric, a subtle nudge to toe the line, inadvertently reinforcing the very uncertainty it's meant to calm. At its core, the battle comes down to trust in parties, in promises, and in the idea that votes actually deliver tangible results. When trust fades, opportunities open for challenges, even imperfect ones. That's why Reform UK matters. Support them or not, they're a test of whether voters will break old habits, whether frustration can turn into real influence, and whether the political class can still control the story. Labour insists the threat is overstated, that polls exaggerate Reform's reach, yet their words reveal unease. Concern at the top always trickles down, and with council elections approaching, this isn't just about claiming seats, it's about proving who can shape the future. Momentum, signaling, and cracks in the system all matter. So when you watch exchanges like this, don't just hear the words, watch the body language, the defensiveness, the repetition, the endless justifications. These often reveal more than the arguments themselves. Is Labour right to warn voters, or does it look like a party anxious about losing control? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like if this gave you insight, and subscribe for more sharp political breakdowns. The next chapter is just ahead.